on in there. And who knows about some of those other prisoners that might be there with him as well. We weren't told what their thoughts were or what their actions were that they had done after this. But we find that the Philippian jailer was taught. And one of the other things that we have to understand here too, what did we say last week that Paul used when he went into the synagogues and talked with the Jews? What did he use as scripture to teach? The prophets, that's right. From the Old Testament, he used the prophets because, and that was probably an answer, and I don't remember if somebody gave it or not when I asked, why did he go to the synagogues? Who should have been the easiest people to get to come to Christ? That should have been the Jews, right? Because they had seen the prophecies for millennia. They had been there. They were taught that. That's something that they learned from the day that they were born. And so, but now the jailer, he has to probably start a little bit differently with him, doesn't he? And much like we might today, in the fact that, first of all, we've got to figure out, number one, do you believe in God? Do you believe there is a God? And then kind of work our way from there. So that's where he started with the jailer, but the jailer quickly came to know what it was that was required of him and what was the first thing he did when they finished teaching him. Much like Lydia, right? Let's go get baptized. Let's take care of it now. And it says, and wash away his sins. So the jailer now, he and his family, along with Lydia, so now we've got to suspect that this is the building up of the church in Philippi, and along with Lydia, and probably that slave girl. We really weren't told, a whole lot about her, other than this is the reason they're in jail in the first place, is because they excised the demon, evil spirit from her. So now the jailer, his family, they are saved. They've been baptized. And the next morning, we get into the magistrates, the big dogs here that were deciding their fate, says, all right, we've beaten them. They spent the night in jail in the stocks. Let's let them go. So they send their assistants, if you will, down to the jail and tell the jailer, all right, let him go. But what does Paul do? Does he get up and run out because he's free now?
He told them to man up and do it themselves.
There you go. He said, listen, he played, and he'll play this a few times in his ministry. He played the Roman card. That's what I'm going to call it, okay? He played the Roman card, right? And he says, listen, nah, you're not going to do this to a Roman citizen. Can you see the eyes on those assistants who came down from the magistrates when they found out that they were Romans? That been a big deal. And we know that Philippi was a colony of Rome. And so now they're in this Roman colony, and they are Roman citizens who have publicly been beat. And so he said, you know what? Those magistrates want us out of here. Have them come down and do it themselves, because we're Roman citizens, and this never should have been done to us in the first place. So what do the magistrates do? Exactly that. They come down to them and say, all right, wrong, shouldn't have done this. Could you all just leave? Paul says, I'm out of here, out of the jail. What's he do? What does Paul do at this point? Does he just skedaddle and get out of Philippi? He went to Lydia's house. He went to gather the brethren from Philippi around him to probably told them what happened there, right? But that they should stay strong and that they should continue to worship. And then we'll hit upon Philippi again in just a little bit in between lessons 1 and 2. you kind of see where lesson 2 is not necessarily a just dead on bang Philippi type of a thing or Philippians type of thing, but it does work its way in there too if you study. We were chapter 16 with the establishment of the church in Philippi, and then we'll get into chapters 27 and 28 here this morning. But what I want to do real quick and encourage you to do from now on during this course of study, because this is the way I'm going to do it, is that you go home, if you haven't already, or if you haven't filled them out during class, you have questions that I gave you last week, correct? And everybody brought those back with them this morning, correct? I'm not going to have you raise your hand if you did or didn't. But that's the way we're going to do this, is that we're going to answer those questions, all right? Most of them are pretty simple. I think I could probably give these to Cecilia's class there, and they could all come up with the right answers with these here. But where was, on their journey, the getting to Philippi, where was Paul forbidden to preach? In Asia, yeah. And he also wanted to go where? And was not permitted to? Bithynia. Where was he called? As per Send the Light song, where was he called? Macedonia. He was called to Macedonia. Oh. So Philippi wasn't an accident. It was divine direction. This is where I want you to go, and this is how you're going to get there, right? So the city of Philippi, we know that it was located in Macedonia, and we just mentioned that it was a Roman colony. And it was, if you didn't know, it was settled by, and I don't think I touched upon this, it's settled by retired Roman soldiers. So, and we did mention the fact that it was along the, how do you say that, Mike? Via Ignatia Road. Okay. You put the emphasis on the syllable that you wish, and if we'd all spell it the same way, we'll be okay. All right. But, you know, sometimes I think, I love these types of things and understanding why the city is there and why it's kind of important, if you will. You know, when we learn our American history, we learned that George Washington crossed what? The Mississippi? No, it was the Delaware. And that's important for some reasons we're not going to go into here. But, you know, this is important too because of how travelers would come through that area on their way from the east to the west, and somewhat of a dividing Asia from Europe at that point in time. And it was highly valued because of the Roman citizenship was valued, and as we see, this kind of got Paul out of a tight spot here, didn't it? Because if he had been in Jerusalem and just in front of the Jews and said, well, I'm a Roman, do you think that would have had as much weight as it did here? Probably not. They may have squirmed a little bit because they didn't want to they get slammed around by the Roman government who was at that time in charge. But later in Philippians 3:20, we're going to find that Paul says that his citizenship, the one that he values most, is in heaven. So Lydia was the first convert. She was a seller of purple. We talked about that. She was from Thyatira. I don't know how much more importance that was, other than the fact that that was kind of the center of the purple trade, if you will. We talked about that a bit. The Lord opened her heart, and what did she immediately do? She was baptized. Now the slave girl, I don't know, that to me that was almost humorous in the fact of what she was doing, and more in the fact that Paul just got tired of it. And so Paul says, all right, get out of there, you evil demon, you. And so now what happened, that led to his being put in jail, right? So he was delivered to in the gospel confronted spiritual darkness, and that was that spirit, the demon that was in her, and he was led to public, the deliverance led to public opposition, and that was by the guys who owned her. And now couldn't make any money off of her anymore because she couldn't talk about the future with folks. Now Paul and Silas were in prison. They were beaten, imprisoned, and put in stocks, right? And at midnight, though, given the situation they were in, Paul and Silas were praying and singing songs. They were holding their own little worship, if you will, there in the prison. The Philippian jailer, his question, and we talked about these this morning already. What must I do to be saved? And what did they do? They spoke to him the word of the Lord. He and his family were baptized immediately. And biblical faith includes obedient faith. And if you wrote fast, you got all your blanks filled in now, if you had it. So let's go into lesson 2 here. Now, as I was mentioned, and the author of our lesson here today talks about, there was a pretty good gap, and we're talking both just in Scripture itself and time, between chapter 16 and chapter 27, where we kind of come into lesson 2 here. Let me get on the right lesson. Which is called the ministry in chains. And because Paul uses this description of his situation many times in here. Well, how did Paul get to be in these chains? And that's really what has happened, what has transpired between chapters 16 and 27, where we take into this lesson today. Paul has, in this time period, and I don't know exactly how long it is. What do you think it might be? Mike, 2 years? 3 years, somewhere in there, that has transpired in between the church, the establishment of the church in Philippi, and where we take up here in this lesson itself. But what's transpired here is his third missionary journey. All right, and so one of the things I found interesting was that in that journey, we know at least twice Paul went back to, in that third missionary journey, to the church in Philippi and met with them again there. Once kind of on his way out, and then again on his way back before he got on the ship. To come home. So that was that third missionary journey. And Paul was back in there again in Philippi, preaching and teaching and exhorting the folks who were there. You know, I don't think we know how lucky we have it, how good we have it, maybe not lucky, but how good we have it, and that we're not always, and it seems like it's a little more these days than it was when I was a younger fella. But we don't have this headwind of opposition that the Christians in those days had from everybody in there, the Jews and the Romans, and they find along the way some of the Greeks. The Greeks themselves worshipped other gods and such. But what has led us now, after Paul finishes his third missionary journey, he comes back to Jerusalem. And where do you think Paul goes to start teaching again? Back to the synagogue again, right? And who do you think might be in the synagogue in Jerusalem. Those people that really enjoyed Christ's teaching, and that'd be the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and I say that tongue in cheek, that the Pharisees and the Sadducees in there. And so now, having said all that, Paul's back in trouble again with them. Not unusual. He's probably used to being, well, he is used to doing that at this point. We know that everywhere that he went, that there was a synagogue. Even Thessalonica chased him to Ephesus, I believe. Thessalonica bound him up for a little while, tossed him in jail, and then let him go. And he went down to Ephesus, I believe it was. And then the folks at Ephesus, and then I'll double check on this, but they were like, okay, this sounds good. We like this teaching that Paul has here. And the Jews at Thessalonica says, is Paul down there at Ephesus preaching? Same thing we ran him out of town here for. So they ran down to Ephesus, and Paul departs from there. So this is along that journey as well. But so anyway, now Paul's back in Jerusalem, and Paul's in trouble with the Jews again, and he's pleading his case, and he actually gets brought up before, again, Romans at this point. And so, let's see where this starts here. So along this journey of seeing, who was it? Felix first, and then Festus. So he sees the guy that's going to make the rules, and going to come and bring judgment down on him, the Roman who was. And so the Roman, at this point, I think that was a 2-year period, if I'm not mistaken from the reading. But he just he listened to him. He said, I don't find anything that he should die for, because the Jews were wanting to kill him. They just want to kill anybody who is in direct opposition to him, obviously Christ and now Paul. So he said, I don't see that there's anything that he needs, but I'm going to keep him locked up because I want to do a favor for the Jews, right? I don't want to get them all mad and everything. And everything. So he keeps him locked up, and I'm going to make a decision on this someday, and he don't. And then the next person comes in and straighten me out there. Ashley, who was first, Festus or Felix? I get the F. So Felix was first, and then Festus comes over and takes over Felix's job. And so he's like, okay, let's open up this can of worms again. And they start looking at it. And he says, well, I don't know. How about King Agrippa? He's in town. And so let's let him take a look at this case here, because I can't find anything wrong with what Paul is doing here. And so King Agrippa gets in on it, and what's Paul do at that point? He plays that Roman card again, right? And so as a Roman, he has the ability to raise his fate up to Caesar. And so he plays that card. And he says, all right, you guys are just messing around down here. And I'm putting words into Paul's head that maybe Paul didn't speak, and I'm sure he didn't speak them like I did. But that seems to be the result of this, is that Paul, he plays the Roman card and wants to go and let Caesar make this decision of what's going to happen to me. And so that's where we really kind of come into lesson 2 here, is this voyage that is taken to get up to Rome. And so we're going to kind of start reading there. And we're going to read the Acts 27, 1 through 6, and then we'll divvy out some of the other scriptures here. And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Julius. He was a centurion of the Augustan regiment. So entering the ship of, again, my syllables and all that stuff.
Adramyttium.
There you go. Say it fast. After many,
That's it.
we put to sea.
It makes it sound like I know what I'm saying anyway.
Adramatium.
What Mike said.
So I'm just going to stop at the big words and you say them. So anyway, Adramatium. We put to sea, meaning to sail across the coast of Asia. Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, was with us. And the next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him liberty to go to his friends and receive care. So I don't have, well, I guess, is there a long pointer over here somewhere? There it is.
There's one moving about.
Hold on.
I can do it.
The man with the plan back there. All right. So they've come up to Sidon at this point, and Julius, whether he likes Paul or just don't think Paul is guilty or whatever the case may be, he's been pretty good to Paul. And at Sidon, he lets him go and see. Gave him liberty to go see his friends and receive care. When we had put to sea, again, here's that we that we're talking about. So likely Luke is with him at this point. From there, we sailed under the shelter of Cyprus. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean in the latitude and longitude type of a thing under it. It's just more for protection that they were on the side of Cyprus that they were, because the seas were rough at this time of year over in the eastern Mediterranean over there. It says the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea, which is off Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. So when they get to Myra, then they change ships, and they get on this new ship, and
Is not in use. Please remember to remove the USB dongle.
okay.
I don't know what that's about.
Remove it.
So now, and I kind of, from Caesarea to Malta. So they don't have an easy, I don't know exactly what time of year it was that because if you know anything about, we have sometimes, when's the worst time to live in Oklahoma?
Now.
Yeah, exactly.
Year round.
Yeah, well, yeah, as far as weather goes, let's leave it at that. As far as weather
Always
goes.
windy there.
So it's that type of thing that I believe is causing a lot of their problems here. But these guys are going anyway, and off they go. And now they are making their way through the Mediterranean here, and the weather's not being nice to them. So what happens with them when they get to an island? They don't know the name of this island yet, right? But they get to this island and they get shipwrecked there on the island.
They all escaped.
Yeah, somehow. And that's okay, Mike. I tried making my own this morning and that didn't happen. So at least we have these here.
We're trying out a new remote.
Oh, okay.
Not always working good.
There's Billy.
All right, so now we're getting into the Mediterranean. And you know how this works every time. I've got all this laid out just right until I get here.
It says they found out the island was called Malta.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they were even there so nice. Paul was because of the first imprisonment. They were scared once they found out he was Roman, and now they're like rolling out the red carpet for him.
I don't know, I'm not sure they even, did they know about that? The Romans in, the Romans in Jerusalem, did they know about the imprisonment in Philippi?
But if they heard, is this the same guy who was preaching, you know?
Could very well have been. Could very well have been. So, yes, sorry, my notes have gotten all muddled up here. So anyway, through all the bad weather they had, they finally find themselves over at Malta, right? And let me see what this says on here. Now, it says that the ship was lost in a storm. Well, what happened there, they ended up running the ship aground, right? And as they did, the back end of the ship started breaking apart. And so they were ordered, first of all, what was going to happen to them? What were the Romans about to do to them?
Kill them all.
They're going to kill them all, right? And so that way we don't have to worry about anybody.
Like Moses.
Yeah, that's right. Don't have to worry about them escaping, get them away from us and everything. And, but they didn't. And they were ordered, if you can swim, I don't know what, if the sea's bad enough, it just shipwrecked me. I'm not sure I want to be swimming anywhere. I'm doing good to get in the pool and, and do that. But anyway, if you can swim, get in the water and swim. And if you can't swim, grab a hold of a board and get something to float on and get over there. And that's kind of where chapter 27 goes through there to get them onto the island, right? So we get into chapter 28 now, and that's where they find out that the island was called Malta. And guess what it's called today? Malta. Still there.
Tell them about the dog I used to have here.
Oh, nobody cares about that.
Yes, they do.
Well, you know my husband is quirky and, yes, he did.
I never knew that about him.
So, he wanted our dog to have a name full of history, and so we had a 16-year-old Maltese, and when we got her, we named her Issa, which is the Publius, that is the leading citizen on the island of Malta. He had a Maltese named Issa that he practically worshipped. He had artists come in and paint pictures of her, and they wrote poetry about her, and so that's what we named our dog. Also a Maltese.
That is interesting. That is definitely-
So did Maltese come from Malta?
That makes sense.
Yes.
So that's where they were bred and to be little white fur balls?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've had two of those in our journey through life as well. Didn't know where they came from. Mine came from Kentucky, but.
But our ancestors came from.
But the ancestors were from Malta. Well, who knows? Maybe the great-great-great-grandfather puppy was there whenever Paul was there. Okay. And, but Paul, writes about, or Luke writes about the fact that these people were really nice to them, right? And so, what's the first thing that happens to Paul, though?
Bit by a viper.
Right. And I thought it interesting. I mean, I paint these things out in my mind's eye as I'm reading them. And so he gets bit by a snake, and what's it says he does?
Shake it off.
Shake it off. And so he shakes off this viper. And now what's going on? The Maltese people are watching him. waiting for him to do what? Swell up. Swell up and fall down dead. But does it? So first of all, they thought, what did they think about him when he got bit by the viper?
Thought he was a murderer?
He thought he must have been a murderer because he got bit by this viper, and that's what their God would have done to him, right? Well, now he shakes it off. He doesn't swell up like they think he's going to. So now what do they think?
He's a god.
Now they think he's a god. All right? And so now he comes back to him and it's like, no, that's not the way things work around here, is it?
Even pagan, ignorant, I don't use the word ignorant as stupid, but
Yeah,
pagan, ignorant people
unaware of it.
can still be basically good people and do nice things for others. And, you know, I don't know what my point is, but they don't have the right faith and the right religion, but they're still being hospitable to strangers.
You know,
There may be some good in a lot of people, you know.
most of the time, I would say, as a matter of fact. So, but in all this time, how's Paul traveling? Is he out on the sun deck and the Lido deck or whatever, and you know, sunning and all this kind of stuff? Well, Paul is a prisoner,
It's almost like he's got a bodyguard.
right? And he's in chains this whole time, right? So, albeit, even if Julius was nice to him along this trip, Paul was still in chains. Paul was a prisoner of the Roman government at this point and being taken to Rome. Now, I suspect that most of those fellows were in chains. Number one, as I just said, I wouldn't want to be swimming around in that water. Number two, I wouldn't want to be doing with some shackles on. And I suspect that that's what most of these folks were, including Paul and his escape from this boat. But he knew, didn't he, that God was going to bring them all through. He was told that, right? And so he believed and went ahead with it. Let us get on the island there. So now I think maybe Ashley had talked about, or no, I'm sorry, was it the explanation of the dog in Pamphilus? So that's how we segue into Pamphilus here. I think that was his name, right? Publius.
Yes. Publius.
Sorry, Publius. And that was wasn't that the, yeah, so Publius was his father was sick, and so now Paul goes, and what does he do? He heals his father, correct? And so now you have a bunch of folks that are on this island, and they are, you know, astounded at what Paul can do. What happens now with the rest of the people of this island?
They come to him for healing as well.
Right, and so this is almost, to me, it seemed like, you know, I believe it was the lady with the issue of blood who just touched Jesus's tunic, and he didn't know it until she touched, and he felt her do that, some of that energy or whatever. Well, these folks were bringing handkerchiefs and things like that to him. And he was touching those, and these people were being healed. So everybody who's diseased and healed came, the rest of those on the island, it says. And they honored us in many ways. And when we departed, they provided such things as necessary. So they gave them some further provisions and everything of what they needed to get them on up into Rome. And one of the things you get over there, it's just amazing today. How long would it take us? We could probably get in a rowboat almost, or a motorboat, and get from Malta up to Rome, but it took them 3 months to get from that point up to Rome. And they stayed a few days here and a few days there. So it says there we circled at Syracuse, we circled around and reached Rhegium. And after one day, I'm in verse 13 here in the reading. And after one day, the south wind blew, and the next day to Puteoli, where we found brethren. And this I kind of find interesting too. They found brethren in this town along the way. So somebody else, I would suspect, has been there already and spread the word so that there were brethren in that region. And they stayed with him for a week, so there's some more of that time. And then they went on to Rome. Verse 15, and from there, when the brethren heard about us, they came to meet us as far as Appii Forum and 3 Inns. I don't know where that is. And
Top left-hand corner.
Or shows the 3 taverns.
Right south of
yeah, Tabers. Then Paul saw them, and he thanked God and took courage for he was kind of inspired, you know, long trip, long and change, that can kind of get you down, can't it? And we've got to think again of our journey, our course of life here, and you know, not to let things get us down, particularly when we have people who have come before us that have lived this difficult life that they've had to endure in spreading the gospel themselves. Now when they came to Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard, but Paul was permitted to dwell by himself with a soldier who guarded him. And it came to pass after 3 days that Paul called the leader of the Jews together. So when they had come together, he said to them, Men and brethren, though I have done nothing against our people or the customs of our fathers, yet I was delivered as a prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans, who when they had examined me, wanted to let me go, but because there was no reason to put me to death, for putting me to death. And when the Jews spoke against it, I was compelled to appeal to Caesar, kind of telling them, this is why I am here. Not that I had done anything, not that I had anything of which to accuse my nation. For this reason, therefore, I have called for you, to see you and speak with you, because for the hope of Israel I am bound with these chains. When they said to him, we neither received letters from Judea concerning you, nor have any of the brethren who came reported or spoken any evil of you. Too many bills.
My husband's in charge of them today, so.
Oh, cool. All right. Chris is having fun with the bill somewhere. But we desire to hear from you what you think, for concerning this sect. What sect? Christians, exactly that. We know that it is spoken against everywhere. Who's speaking against them everywhere? The Jews. Yeah, the top dogs, I guess you call them in the Jewish nation. Right. So when they had appointed him a day, many came to him at his lodging. So again, Paul's hanging out at a house he rented for 2 years, I think it says in reading somewhere. So when they had appointed him a day, many came to him at the lodging, to whom he explained and solemnly testified of the kingdom of God, persuading them concerning Jesus from both the law of Moses and the prophets, from morning till evening. And some were persuaded by the things which he had spoken. So some of those Jews understood, yep, I agree. This is what has happened. And some disbelieved. Go figure. We see that quite often, don't we? And who were they influenced by? The Pharisees. And when they did not agree with themselves, they departed after Paul said one word. The Holy Spirit spoke rightly through Isaiah, the prophet, to our fathers, saying, so this is what he's using to teach, particularly the Jews, because they're the ones who have this, not the only ones, I'm sure, but they're the ones who have this ingrained in their brain, their psyche, their hearts. Go to this people and say, hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. When I read these two verses, I thought of humanity today. The same thing has been happening. How long before these people were hearing this had the prophet spoken? Was it 2,000 years? Less than 2,000 years? How many years has it been since Christ lived on this earth? And where has our humanity gone with this message that Christ brought and that Paul went around the world at his time teaching? And we're kind of in that same boat where we are departing from that word. And we're just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Not that we say, and when I say we, I don't mean you and I say humanity. Yeah. All right? We're saying, well, that's not what he really meant. We've got a lawmaker over in Texas right now, or one who is just got elected, or is running for election, that says God is binary. There is no male or female. God is binary. How could that be any further from the truth than what some of these people were thinking and teaching at this time? We've blinded ourselves. Humanity has blinded itself to the message that was sent to us by Jesus Christ. But we are reliving some of what Paul had to face at that time, but what he was trying to teach as he went through.
I believe that it has continued to be much the same. I mean, there were so many that their eyes were closed, their ears were not hearing.
Let me give you one of these questions here.
Many were saved and many are lost. I think are still in that boat. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is not the only time in history when that's happened, for sure. Those are coming down your road.
No, we work together, Paul. We'll work together.
All right, thank you all. What was the natural flow of that? Great.
I can't get used to what you do. I can see you're doing this.
Yeah.
And it's not right.